Alright, hello everybody. Okay, so now we're gonna be going um through the uh we're gonna probably finish this up today because there's only 22. We're on 22, the 22nd page of 30, which since it includes sources, there's probably not that much left. So um alright, so um let's see here. Let's read this. So, as a robustness. Oh, yeah. Before I begin, this is peer review, but it's for research because we're understanding the alliance between China and Russia and Brics. So, and we're. Okay, so the upward trend in China-Russia cooperation. This section goes after or considers non-military aspects, including economic and diplomatic dimensions. So, let's see what's okay. The importance of trade, for example, has received a fair amount of attention in multiple aligned studies. The spirit of commerce unites nations. Some scholars have used economic logic to explain states' security concerns and alignment patterns. Right now, I'm just kind of reading. Okay. Governments are more willing to accept the costs of alliance with valuable economic partners to deter attacks on them and defend them in the face of war. Alliances until. Okay, so it's just going over the reason for alliances, especially when it comes to the China-Russia cooperation. Okay, so particularly important to consider economic and diplomatic um, aspects of cooperation because China-Russia relations are often present as being military dominated and lacking other foundations. Okay. The diplomatic cooperation and converging perceptions of threats. Okay. China and Russia display joint resistance against the West attempts to use force to remove regimes or exert economic pressure on states reckoned by the U.S. and its Western allies as guilty of human rights violations. Thus, in 2017, a China-Russia joint veto made it to where. I'm trying to see here. Okay, like China and Russia have been vetoing certain locations, and this kind of creates like a Cold War instance. If remember the whole thing with the United States and Russia, and how Russia used to use its veto power to keep the United States from also doing certain things. And this has to do with things of like Caesarea, Myanmar, and other places. Um, so okay, and this veto has been going on since 1991 with Russia and China. Okay, hold on. In the early 1990s, there were no joint China-Russia vetoes. Half of Russia's and all of China's vetoes in the UNSC, the United Nations Security Council, were joint China-Russia vetoes in addition to the UNCSC in the period of 2006 to 2012. Out of the total of 120 voting occasions, China was never on the same side as the U.S. However, there was a 99% rate of agreement between China and Russia. Russia and China also enhanced cooperation with multilateral formats such as SCO and Brics. On July 15th of 2014, the two countries established an agenda for the Brics Development Bank with a reserve currency pool, which was called the Contingent Reserve Arrangement and was equal to 100 billion US dollars, and it's headquartered in Shanghai. The bank represents an attempt to break the dominance of the US dollar in global trade, as well as dollar-backed institutions such as the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank, both of which are US-led institutions in which BRICS countries have little influence. Okay, and you see this right here is coming true today with what just Saudi Arabia did, especially now that all the OPEC countries, all the nations that are selling oil are now BRICS dominated. Okay, those are not good things. Hold on, I'm reading. Okay, hold on. Several China, Russia, Northeast Asian security dialogues throughout 2016 and 2017 emphasized that the American terminal high altitude area defense in South Korea would undermine security in Northeast Asia. That is the continuation of Washington's unilateral worldwide deployment strategy and is an attempt to tilt the regional balance of power in its favor, and that China and Russia must consolidate mutual coordination to better respond to the new threats. Okay, so let's think about that. Okay, so on the west side of Asia, there's NATO and Europe, and on the east side, there's South Korea and Japan. Okay. So increasingly, okay, as well as display counter, increasing American threat have become embedded norms in the China-Russia security relationship. This is where China and Russia relations contrast sharply with China-US relations. In interactions with the US, China never calls Russia a threat. Likewise, in its formal contacts with other countries, Russia does not call China a threat. Rhetoric is, admittedly, a second indicator, but it points in the same direction as the other above-mentioned indicators. Okay. So prior to 2014, China-Russia trade was less than 1/5 of the China-US trade, and only 1/4 of the Russian-EU trade. Think of one over trade and another one, how it's really increased after the whole Ukraine 2014 situation. See, it's increasing, as it's saying. The Ukraine crisis, low oil prices, the war sanctions between Russia and Europe, and the devaluation of the ruble caused a 30% decrease in Russia's total external trade. At the same time, Russia-EU trade decreased by 40%. blah, blah, blah. So basically it's showing that after 2014, Russia went closer to China because their trade increased. And then when Trump came in, Trump tried to pull Russia away from China and back to Europe. Okay, I don't know if this is gonna cover it, but we covered that in a different video. Okay, Russia has become a major oil and gas supplier for China, while the Chinese energy market has become one of the major destinations for Russia's energy exports. Okay, they have an oil pipeline, or a project for an oil pipeline. It's kind of interesting that we cancel our pipeline, but they're going with their pipeline. Okay. Due to the increased capacity of this pipeline, Russia became China's third largest supplier and accounted for 11% of China's total oil imports. However, Russia continued to take market share from other oil exporters and managed to overtake Saudi Arabia for several months as the largest crude oil exporter to China. China-Russia trade right there, if you want to take a look at that. So, let's see here. Anything important going on here? Yeah, for example, the gas still provides an annual supplies by the Russian state-controlled gas company. Yeah. Okay, so basically they have a strong military alliance and they're growing. They have a strong economic alliance. So Russia and China are very, very linked together. Let's see what the conclusion says before we move on to the next one. Next week. See if there's anything important to recap. Okay. While it does not purport to fully resolve the debate about how close China and Russia are to a real alliance, I would say they are in a real alliance. Come on, people. And what such terms as alliance or alignment mean in contemporary international politics. It is intended to be seen as a necessary step in enhancing our understanding and measurement of alignment in general, and China-Russia alignment in particular. Empirically, the analysis above shows that since the end of the Cold War, China and Russia have constructed comprehensive strategic cooperation, of which some aspects are more advanced than others. However, all aspects have consistently progressed over the last 2 decades. Military cooperation has advanced furthest, and that's the biggest danger right there. As, like I said, I'm not reading this verbatim. Since 2005, due to regular joint military exercises, China and Russia have achieved a certain degree of episodic interoperability of their military forces. On the plane of diplomatic cooperation, China and Russia do not behave as true allies. Maybe because they're trying to be a little bit deceptive here. Can you read, especially when it came to the UN vote, how China didn't always vote with Russia? Maybe that had to do with them trying to downplay their alliance in your eyes. Things that maybe you're not looking at. Oops. I just did something. Russia can gain access to more instruments for promoting its agenda of balancing the USA and enhancing its version of multipolarity in Europe. China, in turn, receives Russia's political backing and access to Russia's energy sources and military technologies, which are essential assets for China in its growing tensions with the USA and Asia. Closer alignment between China and Russia can also accelerate the merging of their flagship and geopolitical projects such as China's Silk Road Initiative and Russia's Eurasian Economic Union, which has a potential to strategically reshape the European space. The Russia's Eurasian Economic Union. Yeah, that would really change everything, wouldn't it? Okay, so okay. Hmm. No sources. Well, you can probably get it. Oh, well, I mean, the sources are spread throughout. But anyway, okay, so let's think about what we learned from this. Uh, so what do we learn from this? We learned that China and Russia have slowly been building an alliance since the 1990s. Maybe possibly before, but it's mostly the 90s that they've continued and it's strengthened. They participate in regular joint military exercises, and we know that Goldman Sachs helped them to start and created Brics with them. I've read some sources that Israeli bankers have also been to China. So they're, like I said, they're trying to prop China up as the new world power, with China being the banking system as like London's the banking system, Russia being the military like the United States is the military, and Iran as being the religious center in which is similar to the to Rome being the um, religious center. Now I don't know which city states they're gonna prop up, but that might be something close to um, look at in the future, or to see if that's already taken place. To see if any of these that's further research to look into. Um, Further research to look into is to see if any of the cities in Russia, China, and Iran have incorporated themselves as a territory. Um, Not like the United States perceives as Guam, because Guam, I think, is considered like an unincorporated territory or something like that, whereas Washington D.C. is like a core incorporated territory, and there's a difference. So that could be further research to look into. And then what's Russia's plan with the Eurasian Economic Union, the EEU? So these are just, I mean, you're welcome to look into this, but these are also notes for me for more research to look into, to find out, to understand what Russia's plans for this EEU alliance that would joint um, Europe and Asia together in some kind of economic union. I'm kind of interested in understanding that a little bit more. Uh, so I've been rambling on for about 20 minutes. I hope you like that, and that the next peer-reviewed paper I'm going to look at is a lot shorter. I think it's just like 2 pages, and it'll be next week, and we'll cover that all in one session. And it's about China, Russia, and Iran joint military exercises. The three bad guys that I've pointed out. North Korea might play a role, but it's not as significant as China, Russia, and Iran. Um, but on that note, I hope y'all have a good day, and peace out, and bye. And this has been a Russia and China are fucking us production.